You ever heard a story so creepy it keeps you up at night? No, I'm not talking about jump scares or fake urban legends. This one's real. Or so they say. And it all went down on Halloween night. A small, quiet town that would never forget what happened. Sit tight because this story, it's gonna chill you to the bone. Alright, so picture this. It's Halloween night, cold enough to make you regret not wearing a jacket, even under your costume. Streets are packed with kids in ghost masks, fake vampire fangs, and witches' hats. Houses lined up with carved pumpkins, each trying to outspook the other. But then there's that one house. The abandoned one at the end of Raven Street. You know the type. The shutters hang loose, the garden's overgrown, and everyone swears they've seen something, or someone, lurking in the window. No one trick-or-treats there, and they definitely don't step on the lawn. But tonight, that's about to change. So, here's where it gets interesting. Meet Sarah, Mike, and Danny. Teenagers who were all about pushing limits and proving they weren't scared of anything. They called themselves the Halloween Trio. Pretty bold, right? Sarah was the smart one. Always skeptical, but never backing down. Mike, the joker of the group. The guy with way too much confidence for his own good. And Danny, the quiet one, always tagging along, but never saying much. They made a bet this year. Whoever chickened out first, they'd have to go knock on the door of the Raven Street house. So, they're walking down the street, acting all tough when Mike stops dead in his tracks. "Let's do it," he says, pointing straight at the creepy house. Sarah rolls her eyes. "It's just a house, Mike. You're not scaring anyone." But Danny? Danny just stares at it, like he's already regretting the dare. Mike grins, pulls out his phone, and starts filming. All right, we'll see who's brave enough to ring the bell. The other two hesitate, but eventually they all step onto the lawn. The air? It's heavy. Colder than it was just a second ago. And every step they take, it feels like they're being watched. But the kicker? They don't even make it to the porch before something happens. Boom! The front door slams open by itself. No wind, no explanation, just this loud, echoing slam that makes their hearts race. Sarah jumps back, and even Mike's got this nervous laugh going. But Danny? He whispers something under his breath. "This isn't right, we shouldn't be here." Mike brushes it off. "Relax, it's just some old hinges." He marches forward and steps into the house. The floor creaks. The shadows stretch across the walls like something alive. And that smell, like wet earth and something rotting, hits them instantly. Danny's shaking now. "Guys, I'm serious, we need to leave." But Sarah? She notices something. On the wall, right by the staircase, there's a mirror. Old, cracked, and covered in dust. But as they all look into it, something moves. It's faint at first, like a shadow sliding across the glass. But then it grows clearer. A figure, a tall man in a torn-up suit and a jack-o'-lantern for a head. Except the face carved into the pumpkin, it's twisted, like it's smiling and screaming at the same time. The mirror fogs up, and when they look back, the figure is gone. But now they hear it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, coming from upstairs. Mike gulps, trying to play it cool. Probably just the wind, but no one's buying it anymore. Sarah grabs his arm. "Mike, this isn't a joke anymore. Let's go." Suddenly, the door slams shut behind them. They're trapped. Gap 3S. As they stand there, hearts pounding, the room grows colder. The air feels thick, like they're not alone. Mike, Sarah, and Danny huddle together, eyes darting around the room. The jack-o'-lantern man vanishes as quickly as he appeared, leaving them in an eerie silence. Suddenly, the old dusty radio in the corner crackles to life. An old-timey voice comes through, distorted but clear enough to understand. "Welcome, brave souls. You have unlocked the curse. Now, you must uncover the truth to escape." The lights flicker, and the room shifts. Walls stretch, furniture rearranges itself, and a hidden staircase descends from the ceiling. They exchange terrified glances, but Sarah steps forward, determination in her eyes. "We have to do this. It's our only way out." They cautiously climb the staircase, each step creaking ominously. At the top, they find a small attic, filled with old photographs and dusty books. In the center, an ancient, ornate mirror stands, its surface shimmering unnaturally. Danny approaches it, his hand trembling as he reaches out to touch it. The mirror ripples like water, revealing glimpses of the past. They see the jack-o'-lantern man, once a kind-hearted caretaker of the house, cursed by a vengeful spirit on Halloween night. His only escape? To pass the curse on to those who dare to enter. Realizing the weight of their discovery, Mike turns to the others. We have to break the curse. But how? The radio crackles again, the voice now softer, almost sympathetic. Find the talisman. Destroy it. Set me free. With renewed urgency, they search the attic, uncovering clues that lead them to a hidden compartment behind the mirror. There, they find an old, rusted box. Inside, a sinister-looking talisman pulses with dark energy. Sarah takes a deep breath, raising the talisman above her head. This ends now. As she smashes it against the floor, the house shakes violently. The jack-o'-lantern man appears one last time, his twisted face softening into a look of gratitude before he fades away. The room brightens, the air warms, and the oppressive feeling lifts. They rush down the stairs, finding the front door wide open. As they step outside, the sun rises, casting a warm glow over the house. They look back, seeing it transform back into its former, welcoming self. The curse is broken. They're free. But as they walk away, the camera pans back to the shattered talisman, now reassembling itself piece by piece. Some curses, it seems, never truly end, Gap 5S. And so, if you ever come across a seemingly ordinary house with an extraordinary past, remember, some doors are best left unopened, because you never know what or who might be waiting on the other side. Gap 3S. The following days are a blur. The small town is buzzing with the news of the missing kids. Their families, devastated, cling to hope while grappling with an overwhelming sense of dread. The once quiet streets are now filled with whispers, rumors, and lingering fear. Gap 2S. The house, now sealed off by police tape, stands eerily silent. Neighbors avoid it, casting wary glances and quickening their pace whenever they pass by. But the real story, it lies beyond what meets the eye. Gap 2S. In the police station, Detective Harris reviews the case files, frustration etched on his face. He's seen many things in his career, but this is different. He flips through old records, uncovering a history of disappearances, all linked to that cursed house. Each Halloween, like clockwork, someone goes missing, and yet no one talks about it. It's like the town has a collective amnesia, a silent agreement to forget. Gap 2S. Meanwhile, Sarah's mother sits by the window staring at the house, tears streaming down her face. She clutches Sarah's favorite scarf, whispering, "Come back to me." Her eyes, filled with a mix of sorrow and determination, seem to pierce through the veil of normalcy, sensing the unseen horrors within. Gap 2S. The camera shifts to Danny's room, untouched since he left. On his desk, a journal lies open, scribbled with notes about urban legends and local folklore. His last entry? "If we uncover the truth, maybe we can end this." His words hang in the air, a haunting reminder of their unfinished mission. Gap 2S. And then, there's the mirror. Back in the house, it stands pristine, almost inviting. But behind its surface, the faint figures of Mike, Sarah, and Danny remain, their eyes wide with terror. They watch, helpless, as life continues outside, their silent screams echoing in the void. Gap 2S. The town's children, curious and brave, dare each other to peek through the windows, to see the shadows flit across the glass. They tell stories, each more terrifying than the last, about the kids who disappeared and the curse that binds them. Gap 2S. And so, the legend grows. The house, once just an old building, becomes a symbol of fear, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurs. The townsfolk, though wary, know one thing for sure. Some mysteries are best left unsolved, because sometimes the truth is more terrifying than any ghost story. Gap 3S. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the town, Sarah's mother makes a decision. She will find a way to bring her daughter back, no matter the cost. With a determined look, she gathers Sarah's notes and heads towards the house, unaware of the dark secrets that await her. Gap 3S. The camera pans out, capturing the house in its eerie silence, a silent watcher of all that unfolds. And as the screen fades to black, the echo of Sarah's voice whispers through the air, "We're still here. Don't forget us." Gap 5S. The story, it seems, is far from over. And as the town braces for another Halloween, the question lingers. Who will be next? Gap 3S. In the days following the disappearance, the town's librarian, Mrs. Thompson, finds herself drawn to an old, dusty section of the library rarely visited by anyone. Amongst the cobweb-covered shelves, she discovers an ancient leather-bound diary. The cover reads, "Property of Abigail," and the pages within tell a chilling tale, one that dates back over a century. Gap 2S. Abigail, it seems, was a young girl who lived in the very same house that now stands as a beacon of terror. Her entries speak of strange occurrences, of shadows that moved on their own, and of whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Gap 2S. Mrs. Thompson reads on, her heart pounding as Abigail recounts the night she and her friends decided to play a game of dares, much like Mike, Sarah, and Danny. But their game ended in tragedy, with Abigail being the only one to escape the house. Her final entry? "The house is alive. It feeds on our fears. I must warn them, but who will believe a child?" Gap 2S. The camera shifts to Mrs. Thompson's trembling hands as she closes the diary. She knows she must share this with Detective Harris, but she fears the town's reaction. They've lived in denial for so long, and this revelation could shatter their fragile sense of security. Gap 2S. Meanwhile, Sarah's mother, now inside the house, stumbles upon an old hidden room in the basement. The walls are lined with children's drawings, all depicting the same figure, a man with a jack-o'-lantern head. Her eyes widen as she notices a recent addition, a drawing of 3 children, their faces filled with terror. Gap 2S. She clutches Sarah's notes tighter, her resolve strengthening. Whatever curse haunts this house, she's determined to break it. But as she turns to leave, the door slams shut. She's trapped. The camera pans to the drawings, which now seem to move, the eyes following her every move. Gap 2S? Back at the police station, Detective Harris receives a call from Mrs. Thompson. Her voice, filled with urgency, pleads for him to meet her at the library. He agrees, sensing that whatever she's discovered might be the key to unraveling this decades-old mystery. Gap 2S. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers on edge, knowing that the house's dark secrets are about to be exposed. But will they be enough to save Sarah's mother and uncover the truth behind the disappearances? Or will the house claim another victim? Gap 3S. The tension builds as the story inches closer to its climax, with each revelation adding another layer to the chilling mystery that haunts this small town. Gap 5S. The unsettling question remains, can the curse be broken, or is the house destined to remain a place of eternal fear? Gap 3S. The camera cuts to the library, where Detective Harris meets Mrs. Thompson in the dimly lit reading room. Her hands still tremble as she hands over Abigail's diary, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to see this." Harris flips through the pages, his eyes widening with each entry. This changes everything," he mutters, more to himself than to Mrs. Thompson. Gap 2S. The scene transitions to Sarah's mother, still trapped in the basement. Her flashlight flickers as she hears whispers growing louder, more insistent. She follows the sound to a hidden compartment behind one of the drawings. Inside, she finds another diary, this one much older and more worn than Abigail's. The cover reads, "Property of the House." Gap 2S. Back at the library, Harris and Mrs. Thompson decipher the final entries. Abigail's warnings become more frantic, her handwriting more erratic. "The house is angry. It wants revenge. It will not stop until it consumes us all," she wrote. Harris's face darkens. "We need to get to that house. Now." Gap 2S. The camera cuts back to Sarah's mother, who flips open the newly discovered diary. The pages are filled with sketches of the jack-o'-lantern man, each more terrifying than the last. Her hands shake as she reads the final entry. "To break the curse, the house must be confronted. The truth must be unveiled. Only then will it release its hold." Gap 2S. As Harris and Mrs. Thompson rush towards the house, the camera focuses on the house itself, its windows glowing ominously as if it knows they are coming. Inside, Sarah's mother hears footsteps approaching. Harris and Mrs. Thompson have arrived. She screams for help, and they break down the basement door. Gap 2S. In a heart-pounding moment, they come face to face with the jack-o'-lantern man. Harris raises his gun, but Mrs. Thompson stops him. "Wait," she says, her voice steady. "The diary, it says we must confront the truth." She steps forward, her eyes locked with the figure's hollow gaze. "We know your story. We understand your pain. Release them!" Gap 2S. The room grows cold, the figure's scythe lowering slowly. The house begins to shake, the walls groaning as if in agony, and then in a blinding flash of light, everything goes silent. The camera pans to the mirror, now cracked, the figures within fading away. Sarah's mother collapses, tears streaming down her face as Harris and Mrs. Thompson exchange a look of grim relief. Gap 2S. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a sense of eerie calm before the final storm. The curse may be weakened, but has it truly been broken? The stage is set for the ultimate confrontation, where all truths will be revealed and the final twist will unfold. Gap 5S. The unsettling question lingers. Will they finally be able to end the house's reign of terror, or is the worst yet to come? Gap 3S. Back in the house, the air grows thick with tension. Sarah's mother, Harris, and Mrs. Thompson stand in the basement, their eyes darting around as shadows seem to dance on the walls. The jack-o'-lantern man remains motionless, watching them with an almost curious intensity. Mrs. Thompson takes a deep breath, her voice trembling but resolute. We know your pain, we understand your loss, but you must let go. Gap 2S. The camera zooms in on the jack-o'-lantern man's face, his hollow eyes suddenly flickering with a spark of recognition. The room grows colder, the whispers louder. Sarah's mother steps forward, clutching the diary tightly. This house. It holds the memories of everyone who has suffered here, but it doesn't have to end this way. Gap 2S. The walls begin to shake violently, as if the house itself is protesting. Harris raises his gun once more, but Sarah's mother shakes her head. No, this isn't about violence, it's about understanding. She opens the diary, reading aloud the final entry. To break the curse, the house must be confronted. The truth must be unveiled. Gap 2S. The camera cuts to the jack-o'-lantern man, who takes a step back, his scythe lowering. The atmosphere shifts, the oppressive weight lifting slightly. Mrs. Thompson speaks softly. We acknowledge your pain. We see you, and we release you from this torment. Gap 2S. A sudden, blinding light fills the room, and the jack-o'-lantern man lets out a guttural, sorrowful cry. The walls stop shaking. The whispers cease. The light fades, revealing the basement empty, the haunting presence gone. Sarah's mother collapses to her knees, tears streaming down her face. It's over! It's finally over! Gap 2S. The camera pans to the mirror, now completely shattered, the figures within dissipating into nothingness. Harris and Mrs. Thompson exchange a look of relief and exhaustion. They help Sarah's mother to her feet, guiding her out of the house. Gap 2S. Outside, the first light of dawn breaks through the darkness. The house, once menacing, now stands silent and still. The curse has been broken, the spirits finally at peace. Gap 5S. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with a sense of closure and relief. The nightmare has ended, but the memory of that fateful Halloween night will linger forever. The house will be remembered not as a place of terror, but as a testament to the power of understanding and compassion. Gap 2S. As the credits roll, a final question hangs in the air. What other secrets do the walls of old houses hold? And are we ever truly alone in the dark? Gap 5S. The story may be over, but the echoes of the past will always remain. And perhaps, just perhaps, some doors are better left unopened. The footsteps? They're coming closer, but now they're circling. Upstairs, downstairs, on the ceiling, like whoever or whatever it is knows exactly where they are. Danny breaks down yelling, "We shouldn't have come here!" I knew it wasn't just a story. Out of nowhere, the jack-o'-lantern man appears at the top of the stairs, his head glowing faintly in the darkness. He tilts his head, watching them. Then he takes one step forward, and another, dragging a rusted scythe behind him, hurling it at the figure, but it shatters into pieces before it even touches him. The man doesn't stop. Sarah screams, fumbling for the door handle, but it won't budge. And just as the figure raises his scythe, everything goes black. The next morning, police find the house unlocked. The kids, gone without a trace. But here's the creepiest part. The mirror, it's back on the wall, spotless now, showing 3 faint figures trapped behind the glass, their faces frozen in terror. And every Halloween since, kids swear they see shadows moving in that mirror. Some say it's just a story, but others, well, they won't dare go near that house to find out. So tell me, do you believe in haunted houses? Because the next time you walk past one, you might want to think twice about going inside. And if you're brave enough to knock, well, just hope you don't end up like them.